Welcome to At Home with Music. I'm Leon Ogeen, or as my young students call me sometimes, Mr. O. That's a little easier to remember, I guess. By now, you are most likely very familiar with the concept of key signatures and the fact that we have 12 major keys and 12 minor keys. And as you know, each one of these keys is based on a scale. So, for example, in the key of C, we have the 7 different notes of the C major scale, and we use those notes to form all the different chords. And you also probably remember the fact that for every major scale, we have a relative minor scale. And so, whereas the C major scale starts on C, its relative minor is A minor. Now, how do we determine that? Well, A minor uses the same notes as C major. And so we're starting here. The reason I'm starting on C major, by the way, is it's easy to see this because it's all the white keys. And so in the relative minor, we're using the same notes, but we've changed the tonic. The tonic note in the key of C major, of course, is C, but now the tonic has become A, and this is the relative minor. You'll also notice that what we end up with when we use the exact same notes is we end up with natural minor, or we could also call that the Aeolian mode. Having trouble saying words here. So C major, also known as the Ionian mode, A minor, its relative minor. We could also call it the Aeolian mode. Either way, what we're talking about here are major keys with their relative minors. But the concept I want to touch on in this video is parallel minor. So let's start with another scale. We'll use G major as our basis here. Every major scale not only has its relative minor, which in the case of G major would be E minor, using the exact same notes as the G major scale. We now have E minor. It turns out to be E natural minor. Of course, we have a couple of other types of minor scales to deal with, but we're just going to deal with the natural minor for now. But G major also has a parallel minor scale, and that is G minor. And so parallel minors, basically we're starting on the same note, but we're altering some of the steps of the major scale in order to turn it into a minor scale. And so what we're doing is we're going to lower the third note, or the third degree of the scale, if you like. These notes are the same. Here is the 6th degree, or the 6th note of the scale. We lower that one, and the 7th. And so now we have the parallel minor of G major, which is G minor. These two scales start on the same note, but now we have altered some of the notes in the major scale, namely the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th, to turn it into G natural minor. So that's what a parallel minor scale is. The tonic is the same note, but we have one scale as major and one as minor. Are there songs where it changes from major to the parallel minor? Well, there's a couple of examples, very famous songs. And the first song that you probably know, if you've ever seen the movie The Sound of Music, this is the song, of course, that Julie Andrews sings to the Von Trapp children when they're all scared and they run into her bedroom during a big storm, and she sings this song to them to cheer them up. My favorite things. Not my favorite sings, my favorite things. Starts out in E minor. Interestingly, the song is based on E natural minor, goes to C, and then that part of the song repeats, and so on. But when we get back to that part where she sings, "These are a few of my favorite things," and then we've changed keys. We've actually just shifted, or I should say Richard Rodgers, the amazing composer of this song, shifts from E minor to the parallel major. And then it kind of works its way back. Now we're back in E minor again. So for a brief moment there in this very famous song, it goes from E minor to the parallel major, E major, and then goes back to the parallel minor, E minor. So both of these keys start on E. One is major, one is minor. They have the same tonic note. They are parallel keys. They have what is known in music as a parallel relationship. I know that sounds kind of an interesting term, but that's basically what it is. Another famous song that uses this type of key change, where it goes from one key to its parallel minor or parallel major. This is another song. It's called "You Don't Have to Say You Love Me." This song was made famous by Dusty Springfield. Now, let's see, I got to move this movie sheet out of the way. I'm looking at the lead sheet here. Let's see, there we go. Now we are in the key of A minor. Also notice we're actually using chords based on the A natural minor scale. We're not using, there's no G sharps in there, although they do come in later. It's interesting. This song kind of switches between different types of minor, but I'm getting a little bit off topic. Basically, we are in A minor. Anyway, you can look this song up on YouTube. You can also look up My Favorite Things. Maybe you've got it on an old LP somewhere. Anyway, it keeps going, and then we come to this climactic part in the verse. And all of a sudden, I'm not doing a very good job playing this, but nevertheless, you get the idea. We have now changed from A minor to the almost said relative. That's not the right term. We have changed from A minor to the parallel major, A major. And then, of course, you go back to the verse, and we're back in A minor again. Now, eventually, this song winds up in B major, and it's very dramatic and everything. So this would be fun for you to listen to. Occasionally you have a song that starts in a minor key, but it ends by borrowing a chord from the major key. There's a famous song that Elton John wrote way back in the beginning of his career. It's called "I Need You to Turn To." Beautiful song. It's almost like an Elizabethan type of song. Just has a feeling like it's a super old song, even though he wrote it in the 70s, maybe the late 60s. I don't know. It's one of the first songs that he wrote with Bernie Taupin that became popular. But what he does at the very end of the song is he uses a device which is known as the Picardy third. And he actually is in the key of E minor. But when the song ends, he ends on E major. And if he were to keep going, it would still be an E major, which is, of course, the parallel major key. Just to sum this up, I'm sure you can see now that the concept of parallel keys, parallel, major, minor, and so on, not too terribly difficult. You're just basically going from the major key to the parallel minor. And composers began to realize, hey, you know, when I'm writing a chord progression in a major key, I can borrow chords from the parallel minor key to give it a little extra color. And so you might have a very common chord progression like this. Right? We're in the key of C, and so I'm playing C, F, G, C, or 1, 4, 5, 1. But what if I borrow a chord from the parallel minor? Well, that gives it a little extra color, doesn't it? Or I could even play something like this. Maybe you've heard that kind of thing where it goes from a major chord and then this minor chord is actually borrowed from the parallel minor key, but we stay in the major key. So that's the subject we will turn to in the next video, is something that we talk about. We call it borrowed chords, or modal interchange is another fancier term for it. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave those in the comment section. I make every effort to answer every question and respond to every comment. I appreciate all of you who have subscribed to the channel recently. I'm very grateful. But still, the majority of my listeners are not subscribed, so I hope you'll take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel. That helps the channel a lot. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next one.